Welcome to our special series on women in the marine world. In these podcasts, you will hear from women who are involved in science or the exploration of the ocean, about their experiences and their messages for the future. On this occasion, we have also collected questions from the younger generation and have asked our guests to answer them. And if your curiosity has been piqued, then head onto our website and send us your question. We'll pass them on to the team and get them answered. We hope you enjoy the stories from all of these amazing women doing great things.
Hi, my name is Marta and I'm from Italy and I'm currently based there too. I'm a marine biologist and illustrator. I'm a freelance, so I get to choose what kind of job I'm going to do. Most times I'm creating illustrated material for science or carrying out workshops on plankton with kids and adults. Sometimes I also get to share my work in conferences and other events, and some other times I get involved in organizing and planning new projects, all linked to the ocean, of course. Why did I choose to become a scientist? To explore. Since I was a kid, I wanted to be a scientist because I wanted to know more about the creatures that live around us and how the water-land ecosystem works. Growing up, I had two role models that influenced my decision to work in science. Conrad Lawrence, an Austrian ethologist, and Jane Goodall. They both studied animal behavior and fully immersed themselves in understanding animal social behavior and to better understand nature, but also us. And their passion and commitment was just contagious. My favorite part of this job is that I get to share with people what I love the most, the ocean. And I get to be a kid every day, learning more and more about the ocean and how it works and what creatures live in it. A message for the future. I actually think science is quite attractive, both for women and men, especially when we're young. But I feel like at one point when we grow up, we kind of get pushed away by either being it too hard or mostly for men or with a little future ahead. So actually, I believe it's society that has to change or give us the option to choose what we love most. And then for sure, the scientific system also has to change and be more inclusive and more open, showing what it can offer to anyone. What advice I would give to my younger self? Keep doing what you're doing. You'll get there. And stop stressing out so much. No matter what choice you make, you're gonna get there somehow. And just being determined and passionate about what you love and never stop exploring your roots is probably going to take you to the way you want to go. So yes, never give up and always be passionate and determined. Josie, 12, Germany. How is coral reef created? Well, it all starts with plankton. Some of the plankton are larvae or babies of animals that we actually see, like crabs, fish, sea urchins or starfish, and also coral polyps. So the baby coral is floating around as a plankton, moved by ocean currents, until it is time to find a nice rock or a spot to attach to. Once it finds the spot, it attaches to the seafloor and begins its metamorphosis into a polyp, just like a Pokemon. A polyp, it looks kind of like an anemone, and this polyp will grow, get some microalgae to help it grow, and start building a calcified structure, kind of like a tower. When it's grown enough, it starts cloning itself, making it bigger and making the colony bigger, so kind of making new friends, but of the same individual. Erin, 15, England. What piece of advice would you give to a younger woman about what they can do for the environment? I sometimes feel confused about that. Well, Erin, yes, we're all confused about that. And my advice to younger women, men, or people in general would be to be more aware. More aware of the impact we have on the planet, more aware of the creatures that live with us on the planet, and try to reduce our impact by changing, even slightly, our daily action, and then share all that we know with other people around us. The more we learn about the ecosystem and the planet we live in, the more we can actually have a greater impact on the planet, because we are part of an ecosystem.
Hello, my name is Sandy Thomalla, and I am the research group leader for the Southern Ocean Carbon and Climate Observatory at the CSIR in Cape Town, South Africa. And so what we do at SOCO is we are trying to better understand the role that the Southern Ocean plays in driving climate change. And it's really important because the Southern Ocean is disproportionately more important when it comes to buffering the impacts of climate change, because it takes up 75% of the heat that is being generated by the excess anthropogenic CO2 in the atmosphere. And so we're trying to understand, how does it perform such a good job at buffering the impacts of climate change, and how sensitive is the ocean to climate change? So that's what my research group is trying to do. So why did I choose to become a scientist? Well, I've only ever wanted to be two things in my life. The first was a pilot. When I was very young, I wanted to be a pilot. I used to stand in front of the classroom with a friend of our family's who was a pilot and had his hat and his blazer. And at that stage, women weren't allowed to be pilots, but no one seemed to mind that that's what I wanted to do. But it wasn't long after that I decided I actually wanted to be a marine biologist. And at that time, I was mostly interested in sort of rocky shore ecology kind of stuff. So I had my sights firmly set on university, and I did a double major in marine biology and oceanography. And I changed to oceanography in my honors year. So in South Africa, we have a 3-year degree, then 1-year honors degree, then a 2-year master's degree, and then a 3 or 4 year PhD. So a little different to what it is in other countries. And in our honors year, there was an opportunity, if I did oceanography, to go to Marion Island, which is an island in the subantarctic that has albatrosses and penguins and Cape fur seals. And if I chose oceanography honors, I got the opportunity of going on that South African research vessel to that subantarctic island. So that was that decision made for me. But I've never looked back. I'm still a biological oceanographer. So I sit at the crossroads between sort of physics and biology, and I study single-celled plants called phytoplankton and how they take up CO2 through the process of photosynthesis and then exporting it to the deep ocean. So I had a lot of role models in my life. Indeed, I think it was Isaac Newton who said that, how does the quote go? If I can see further, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants. And I had my two supervisors through, it was also quite unusual. Not everyone has supervisors for so long, but I had the same supervisors in my undergraduate honors, my master's, and my PhD. So my supervisors were with me for a really long time. It was Professor Mike Lucas and Dr. Howard Waldron, and they were incredibly supportive and taught me really how to be a scientist and how to harness the passion that I had for what I was doing. And then when I got older, I met Professor now, Pedro Montero, who was my boss at the Southern Ocean Carbon and Climate Observatory, where I've been now for 11 years. And he's just retired, and I've now taken over from him and have been handed a legacy, which is a really amazing position to be in. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And I've got my work cut out for me now, and let's see where this takes us. So what is my favorite thing about the work that I do? Gosh, there are so many favorites. I mean, without a doubt, I'd say my favorite is being able to go to sea and to go on research vessels to the Southern Ocean in particular, which is where I work now. But also in my PhD, I crossed the equator, got to see water bluer than the blues you can possibly imagine, and flying fish popping out. And in the Southern Ocean now, I see ice-covered seas and icebergs and the most incredible sunsets you can imagine. So it's really... it's an incredible opportunity and amazing experience to see the wonders of that ocean, not to mention the huge storms and big waves that are just incredible. I don't go to sea much at the moment. I have 3 children, 6-year-old twins, and one is 3. So it'll be a little while before I start going to sea for long periods of time again. But other favorites are learning every day. Every single day I learn something new. My horizons never stop expanding, and I never stop feeling like I'm in the deep end, having to climb a steep hill of understanding new things that I don't know much about. And I think maybe also I have been able to travel a lot through my job, through conferences and cruises and research, and also meeting really amazing people. Scientists tend to be, I think, really nice people, really grounded, really open-minded. And I've had a lot of opportunities to meet some wonderful people through all of my career trajectory thus far. So I could go on and on, I think, with favorites about my job, but I really do enjoy the work that I do. And I think it's really important for anyone who's setting out on this career to make sure that you love what you do, because you do it for the large majority of your adult life. So you may as well find something that you enjoy doing and that gives you your life meaning and purpose. When it comes to diversity and equitable and inclusive scientific workspace, it's not just about gender at all. I think one really needs to be cognizant of the fact that diversity is an asset. And you should make sure that when you're approaching a problem, you have a diversity of insights from various ages, various backgrounds, various scientific fields, because it's more likely that if you have a multitude of different approaches and different ways of thinking, be they from different genders, different ages, different races, different scientific approaches, you're more likely to get a holistic and more varied approach to that problem. And I think it would be an asset to diversify your approach from your workforce on how they think and how they approach a problem. And you're more likely to get a resolution and to get there quicker. Advice for a younger version of myself, without a doubt, it would be to code. To learn how to code, to be a whiz at Python programming or any computing language. I wish I had spent the time when I had time learning how to code and learning how to program. I don't think it matters what kind of scientist you're going to end up being, whether you work in a laboratory or go to sea collecting samples. Ultimately, the future lies in large data sets from autonomous underwater robots, from remote sensing satellites. If you're not going to be able to code, you're going to be hindered and you aren't going to be the best version of yourself. And I certainly would be a way better scientist if I had the skills to program really well and to manipulate massive data streams into the understanding and the statistical interpretations of that data. So yeah, I would say advice to everyone out there, learn how to code. It will be a real asset to your scientific trajectory as you progress into this future world of ours that's going to be dominated by more and more data that's coming at us faster and quicker and in larger quantities. All right, so I have a question here from Ida, who is 8 years old from Germany, who asks, how is plankton made? Well, that's actually a really interesting question, and it has a difficult way to answer it. Firstly, the definition of plankton is a weird one, because plankton essentially means anything that is at the mercy of the ocean currents, that it can't necessarily dictate its own trajectory through the ocean or how it is moved through the ocean, because generally speaking, they're relatively small. So they're at the mercy of currents and water movements. So my understanding, if I remember correctly, is that the largest plankton is the sunfish, because they're so bad at swimming that they drift along with the ocean currents. But I believe your answer probably referred more to the small stuff. And so the answer there is that the plankton in the small spectrum has two primary kinds. The one is zooplankton, which are little animals. And then beneath that is phytoplankton, with our little plants. And so phytoplankton are the smallest, and they are single-celled plants. And like trees and plants on land, they have chlorophyll, which is a green pigment inside them, and they photosynthesize, which means that they take inorganic carbon, which is CO2, and then they incorporate it into the organic materials of their tissues and their cells, and then they grow, they multiply and split. So from one cell becomes two, two becomes four, and that's how phytoplankton grow. And then zooplankton are the little organisms, little animals that eat them. Zooplankton eat the phytoplankton. And then, of course, the whales eat the zooplankton, that sort of thing. So hopefully that answered your question, at least from a phytoplankton's perspective. Okay, so then the second question is, what are some advantages and disadvantages of being a woman in science? And this question comes from Arthur, who's 16 years old from France. Gosh, I find this a different question to answer, because generally speaking, I don't really see the difference too much. And I have to say, somebody once asked me the question and I said, well, I just don't see myself as a female scientist or a woman scientist. I just see myself as a scientist. So it's a hard question to answer, because I think we should just be considered the same and equal and both having the similar ability to do science. Science isn't like how far you can throw a ball, which arguably a male might be able to do better in some instances, not all. But, there's just no reason to think that a male or a female could science any better or based on gender. So, yeah, I just don't really see the disadvantages myself, and I haven't felt them myself. And that's not to say that they don't exist and that you needn't be sensitive to the fact that other people have felt them. But personally, I never have felt that I've been overlooked or under-recognized because of my gender. And I feel that I've had very equal opportunity in my country, certainly, and through my experiences in the company that I work for now. It's a very equal playing field. So I've been very fortunate and very lucky. But I guess it has also been an advantage, to be perfectly frank. It is definitely advantageous to me to be one of few female scientists at the moment, And because there is a huge push and an emphasis on trying to include and diversify, and it does mean that I get noticed a bit more.
Hello everyone, good morning. My name is Rutuja. I am from India. Right now I'm doing my second master's. My first master's was in environmental science and ecology, and this is my second master's that I'm doing with Ghent University for the Erasmus Mundus program IMBRC. I just moved to Italy in Napoli to do my thesis. I'm really excited because my project is on ocean literacy, and ocean literacy is something that I recently discovered. I've never heard the term back home, and it was really nice and interesting, and also makes me want to learn more about it and try to take it back home so a lot of people are aware. As a part of our studies, we were told to do an activity for the students. What really surprised me is that they were all 6 years, 8 years and 10 years, yet they knew about diving. I didn't know about diving when I was a kid. All I knew was like going out and play, but that made me see like how much the world has changed and how much the kids in today's world are aware of the ocean. Ocean literacy is your influence on ocean and ocean's influence on us. I never really thought I would go into science. My initial dream was being a writer, and I really wanted to do literature. After I did my high school, there was one point where I got into the science stream and I also got into the literature, and then I was at a standpoint where I could choose either of those. But then, being an Indian person and coming from an Indian background, my mom was like, you have to secure your future, you can do all those stuff later. So kind of regret a bit because I came under that pressure of like having a secure future. So that's why I went into science stream, but I kept reading on the side because I love reading. My major was life science, so I had like very big topics like biochemistry, immunology, neurobiology. And then there was this one little class of ecology where I learned a lot about the ecological environments and what are the ecosystems. And the really interesting part of that class was that the teacher, she didn't teach us from the textbook. She used to give TED Talks, beforehand, before the class, and she was like, yeah, read, listen to them, come, and then we'll discuss the topic, which was really interesting because none of the other teachers could do that, which is why then after I finished my bachelor's, I did my first master's in ecology and environmental science. And under that, we had different ecologies. We had aquatic ecology, we had industrial ecology, we had terrestrial ecology. And when I read all these different subjects, I went for aquatic ecology, where I again learned a lot about the ocean. Back home, I live near ocean, which is like 20 minutes away. But the surprising thing is that no one talks about it. No one, except for the fishing communities. But like not my family, not my neighbors. And the only time I've seen when I go down to the beach and I see people fishing, those are the only people who are concerned about it. But if you go away from the seashore, no one talks about like it. If the more further you go into the city or to the mainland where there's no ocean, no one talks about it. My first connection that I felt to the ocean was the relationship between the fishing communities and the ocean. There was this one time I was doing a project in my city with the fishing communities, and the focus of the project was women in the fishing communities, because most of the times it's the men who go to the sea, get the fishes, and then they go and sell in the market. But sometimes there are a lot of activities when fish coming from the sea to the market. There's a lot of activities in between those points where women play a lot of role, like from drying of the fish to like cleaning of the fish and then taking them to markets at different points of the market. So that's why our focus of study was on women. And there was this one point where I was taking a survey from a woman, and she asked me a question: is this going to help us in any way? And I didn't have any answer to that, because I knew it was for my professor's PhD, but other than that, I didn't have any answer to her. And I just like looked at her and I was like, I'm sorry, but I don't know. Hopefully, if it gets published, it will probably go through government, maybe, but I absolutely have no answer for that. And then she just stared at me, and we just had this like 2 minutes of silence between each other. And that's when I realized that no matter how much research we do, it always stays within the community. It never goes back to them. Like, even if we do the research for them, it's never actually for them, I would say, because, or the grass level roots, like nothing is happening. And that question did hurt me a lot, because I was doing a survey, I was asking for her information and everything, but I wasn't really doing anything with that data. So that's why I decided also kind of not to do like academic research. I thought of doing something concrete that would make sure that whatever help I'm doing or whatever I'm doing impacts the communities as well. I want to be able to answer a question like that next time. I think like everyone should be just given equal treatment and equal opportunities without having to look at anything but their background in relation to that field. Here's one question from Erin, who's 15, from England. Her question is, what made you aware of wanting to be recognized for the person you are? Or did you ever want that attention in the first place? No, I didn't want that attention in the first place, because I wasn't aware of myself. Like, I would be in a place where I am right now. But like I said previously, that one question where I was talking to this woman for the survey and collecting the data, and she asked me, like, is this going to help us in any way? And I didn't have any answer for that. That was like the moment where it stumped me, surprised me, and also kind of made me aware of how disconnected people are, at least back home, how disconnected research is from people, like the common people, and especially the fishing communities. So yeah, that one point made me very much aware of a lot of things, like the place that I come from, the privileges that I've had, or the opportunities that I had, and the fact that I was like born in a good place, good parents, and all the things that I've got. So yeah, that one moment changed my life.
We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode and look forward to seeing you next time. You can follow the AtlantECO project on our website on www.atlanteco.eu, and you can also find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. All the links and information on the project and on today's episode is in the show notes. AtlantECO is a project funded under Horizon 2020, a European Union research and innovation programme.